The illusion of sacrifice. Unmasking your self-betrayal. Man is a creature who gets used to everything. Dostoevsky wrote that, and his words resonate with a chilling precision in your life right now. You've become accustomed to the most insidious lie of all, the belief that your existence is meant to elevate hers, even if it means the utter demolition of your own. This isn't a theory, it's the raw, lived experience etched into your very being. You've poured your finite resources, your hard-earned money, your irreplaceable energy, your precious years, the very capacity of your mind, and the boundless potential of your future, into meticulously constructing a lavish throne for her. All the while, you've willingly settled for the cold, unforgiving floor beneath it. You draped this self-immolation in the noble guise of love. You labeled it loyalty. You even convinced yourself this was the very definition of being a real man. But let us strip away the comforting illusions and confront the stark reality. While you've been tirelessly building her life, who has been building yours? As you've dedicated yourself to rescuing her from a life she was inherently responsible for constructing herself, who has been extending a hand to pull you from the depths, you emptied your coffers, offering her everything imaginable. And what, pray tell, did you retain for yourself? A resounding, soul-crushing nothing. Dostoevsky, that profound chronicler of the human condition, didn't merely dwell on the themes of guilt and suffering. He meticulously dissected the profound weakness inherent in men who, with a bewildering lack of self-preservation, cast aside their very souls for individuals who never even requested such a monumental sacrifice. He observed that man only likes to count his troubles, he doesn't calculate his happiness, and you, my friend, have been engaged in a profound miscalculation, meticulously counting the wrong metrics all along. You genuinely believed you were forging a future. Yet with every misguided act of self-negation, you were, brick by agonizing brick, constructing a prison. This prison, ironically, was funded by your own profound blindness, mortgaged by the irreplaceable currency of your own time, and locked irrevocably shut by the paralyzing grip of your own cowardice. You clung to the desperate hope that if you simply gave more, she would be compelled to stay. You rationalized that if you escalated your sacrifices, her love for you would miraculously deepen. You persuaded yourself that by making her life incrementally easier, you would finally, truly feel like a man. But the hollowness persists, doesn't it? That elusive feeling of authentic masculinity remains stubbornly out of reach. Instead, you feel used. You feel utterly unseen, rendered invisible by your own efforts to elevate another. You feel, with a visceral certainty, that you sold yourself at a pitifully cheap price. And the most agonizing sting of all, you undertook this slow, deliberate self-immolation willingly. Dostoevsky, with his uncanny foresight into the human psyche, issued a chilling warning. Lying to ourselves is more deeply ingrained than lying to others, and this, precisely, has been your relentless occupation. You've been engaged in a continuous, elaborate deception with yourself. You've repeated the insidious mantra that this twisted dynamic is what love truly looks like. You've glorified the act of neglecting your own future as some noble, virtuous endeavor. You've convinced yourself that if you simply persist in this endless cycle of giving, you will, at long last, truly matter. But let us be unequivocally clear. Real men do not meticulously dismantle their entire being to prove their inherent worth. Real men, with an unwavering commitment to their own sovereignty, build themselves first. They fortify their own foundations, cultivate their own strength, and establish their own value with such uncheckable conviction that they never, ever have to stoop to begging for validation or acceptance. You have been, and continue to be, the primary financier of a life in which you no longer genuinely belong. You know it. You feel it. That insidious, gnawing bitterness, a corrosive acid eating away at the very fabric of your spirit, whispers its painful truths to you in the desolate quiet of your solitude. You traded your essence, your potential, your very being, for absolutely nothing of true value. You were born with a singular, profound purpose to build your own life, not to donate it, not to waste it on the superficial task of decorating someone else's metaphorical throne, and certainly not to lose yourself entirely in the futile attempt to perpetually ease another's journey. Dostoevsky, in his profound wisdom, would unequivocally label this spiritual suicide, because that, in its most brutal honesty, is precisely what it is, a slow, silent, and tragically, often respectable, self-annihilation. Do you yearn to understand the source of this profound emptiness that pervades your being? It stems directly from this fundamental imbalance. You've meticulously upgraded her life, polished its surfaces, and furnished its interiors, all while allowing the fertile ground of your own existence to lie fallow, to rot from within. And unless you arrest this destructive trajectory now, unless you perform a radical, immediate course correction, unless you summon the courage to confront the brutal, unvarnished truth you've so assiduously avoided, you are destined to die as the man who diligently ensured everyone else's comfort, save for his own. This, tragically, is the unspoken narrative woven into the lives of a disheartening majority of men. But this, I assure you, does not have to be your story, and dare not, for a single moment, attempt to rationalize this self-destruction by claiming you are doing it for love, because if you possessed even a sliver of genuine introspection, you would be forced to admit the far more uncomfortable truth: you are doing it for approval, for the pitiful, fleeting reward of not being utterly abandoned and alone. Dostoevsky, with his penetrating gaze, observed this insidious game playing out in the lives of countless men. The man who performs like a pathetic fool, tirelessly constructing a kingdom in which he holds no crown, meticulously laying brick after brick for a magnificent palace he will never, truly, own. The man who debases himself, begging for a form of validation that he should have, by all rights, cultivated within himself long before the object of his desperate devotion ever entered his orbit. The man who consistently lies to himself, inevitably forfeits all semblance of self-respect. And when that vital self-respect is irrevocably lost, the capacity for genuine, unadulterated love withers and dies. That, precisely, was Dostoevsky's chilling warning. And that, in this moment, is unmistakably you. For what you are currently engaged in is not love. It is a subtle, corrosive servitude cleverly disguised as romance. It is a form of emotional slavery, meticulously packaged and sold to you under the alluring banner of masculinity. And deep down, you already possess an agonizing foreknowledge of how this tragic narrative concludes. You meticulously upgrade her lifestyle, enhance her comfort, expand her opportunities, and then, one day, with a casual indifference that will shatter your carefully constructed world, she leaves. She departs not because she harbors any malevolent intent, but because, in the silent depths of her being, she instinctively understands that you are never truly building for yourself. You are building solely to impress her. You are building with the desperate, underlying motive of being perpetually needed. In the precise moment she no longer perceives a desperate need for your enabling presence, her respect for you, a respect already fragile and conditional, evaporates entirely. Do you doubt the veracity of these stark observations? Look around you. Observe the countless millions of men who, with an almost religious devotion, gave every fiber of their being, only to be left with nothing but a collection of hollow memories they, and they alone, paid for with their broken spirits. Dostoevsky, in his profound character studies, understood the profound sickness of a man whose very identity is inextricably linked to the desperate need to be needed. He famously depicted the underground man, that pitiable, self-loathing character who, in a perverse act of psychological acrobatics, justified his profound weakness as a form of intellectual depth. A man who transmuted his gnawing bitterness into a twisted religion, and who, utterly incapable of constructing a life of his own, subsisted precariously on the flickering shadow of someone else's existence. And you, my friend, are teetering precariously on the precipice of becoming him. You have, with a deliberate yet often unconscious choice, traded genuine ambition for fleeting convenience. You have exchanged the profound calling of a personal mission for the seductive, but ultimately ephemeral embrace of romance. You have, with a staggering degree of self-betrayal, bartered your entire future for a precarious seat at a table you do not, and never will, truly own. And then you express bewilderment at the bitter taste that greets you each morning. You wonder why you carry the pervasive, unsettling sensation of being an imposter. You question why you secretly harbor a deep-seated resentment for the very life you adamantly claim you constructed out of pure, unadulterated love. The answer is brutally simple. You did not build it out of love. You built it because you were profoundly afraid to stand alone, afraid to confront the deafening silence of your own unfulfilled potential, afraid to embody the kind of man whose life does not, and should not, perpetually orbit around the insatiable gravitational pull of being someone else's emotional provider. Let me now articulate a truth that Dostoevsky, in his profound understanding of human nature, had already long grasped. No woman, not genuinely, will ever truly respect the man who meticulously erases himself to facilitate her comfort. No woman, with any semblance of self-respect or foresight, will ever choose to remain tethered to a man who systematically sacrifices his own profound purpose simply to bankroll her desired lifestyle. No woman, possessing an ounce of authentic inner strength, will ever genuinely follow a man who has, in his profound self-neglect, forgotten the paramount importance of leading himself first. And here, perhaps, is the most agonizing revelation of all. You already knew this. You have harbored this uncomfortable truth in the recesses of your being for a very long time. But you simply could not bear to admit it, for to do so would necessitate facing the crushing weight of guilt for all that you have already, irrevocably, thrown away. But consider this your stark, undeniable warning. If you persist in this self-destructive pattern of living, if you continue to barter away your precious life, one incremental upgrade at a time, you will inevitably awaken in a future meticulously constructed for her, only to confront the devastating realization that you no longer exist within it. You will be nothing more than the spectral ghost of the man you could, and should, have become. And yet, with a perplexing obstinacy, you still cling to the convenient fiction that you are somehow doing the right thing. You are yourself sacrificed as if it were a gleaming badge of honor. You even boast, with a perverse sense of pride, about the sheer volume of what you have given, the monumental suffering you have endured, the agonizing endurance you have displayed. But Dostoevsky, with his incisive psychological scalpel, saw directly through the flimsy facade of men like you. Men who, with a pathetic eagerness, convince themselves of their own nobility, when in the cold light of reality, they are merely cowards cleverly hiding behind the seductive illusion of duty. He once penned the profound observation, "Suffering is part of the vast love of the universe, but meaningless suffering, self-inflicted suffering, this is madness." And madness, I regret to inform you, is precisely the choice you have made. You are not suffering with the dignified purpose of a man forging his own destiny. You are suffering with the abject servility of a slave. You are suffering like a man who, with a devastating lack of foresight, systematically jettisoned his profound mission, his compelling vision, and the very essence of his life, all in a desperate, ultimately futile, attempt to prevent her departure. And the most heartbreaking irony, she cannot, even with the best intentions, truly respect you for it, because she sees, with an unsettling clarity, precisely what you stubbornly refuse to admit to yourself, that you are not acting from a position of inherent strength. You are acting solely from the crippling grip of fear. The primordial fear of being utterly alone, the profound terror of being unloved, the paralyzing dread of building something substantial for yourself, and then having to shoulder the terrifying realization that you and only you are ultimately responsible if it fails. So, in a desperate attempt to evade this terrifying burden of self-responsibility, you skillfully shift that immense weight onto her. You elevate her to the absolute center of your universe. You transmute her success into the singular, overarching mission of your life. You twist her dreams into the very justification for your continued existence, for every breath you draw. And when the inevitable occurs, when she no longer perceives a desperate need for your service, you will, with a predictable but deeply unfair sense of victimhood, tell yourself that you are used, when, in the unvarnished truth of the matter, you quite literally volunteer to be forgotten. Dostoevsky, in his profound condemnation of such self-betrayal, would term it spiritual humiliation, the slow, agonizing death of a man who, lacking the requisite courage to construct his own sovereign kingdom, instead chose the pitiable path of merely renting temporary space in someone else's. And you, despite the internal protestations that may be raging within you, are not an exception to this tragic pattern. You tell yourself you are different, but you are not. You are merely another iteration, another statistic among the legions of men who mistakenly believe that sacrifice, in and of itself, is inherently noble, when, in the stark reality of the universe, sacrifice divorced from an unshakable core of self-respect renders a man utterly, profoundly, nothing. You have, with a perplexing amnesia, forgotten the very first, inviolable rule of true masculinity. You are fundamentally responsible for your own survival, not hers, not theirs, yours, because if you abdicate the sacred duty of building yourself, if you shirk the responsibility of leading yourself, if you shrink from the necessary battle of fighting for yourself, you will inevitably awaken one day broken and hollow, desperately begging for the very life you possess the inherent capacity to build for yourself all along. And let there be absolutely no mistake, no lingering doubt in your mind, she will leave. Not because she is inherently ungrateful, but because, in the deepest recesses of her being, she never truly desired to carry the colossal weight that you, in your profound self-neglect, steadfastly refused to carry yourself. You transmuted her into your singular purpose. You elevated her to your supreme mission. You allowed her to become your entire identity. And now you express bewilderment as to why she gradually lost interest, why a glacial coldness settled between you, why she now looks at you and no longer discerns the formidable man she once, perhaps fleetingly, believed in. The answer is painfully clear. You cease to be a man the moment you cease living, unequivocally, for yourself. And she, with an intuitive perception that far outstripped your own self-awareness, recognized this painful truth long before you possessed the courage to finally admit it. The ghost of a man, confronting the consequences of self-abandonment, so here you stand, at a critical juncture. This is your undeniable choice. Persist in this self-annihilating cycle, relentlessly sacrificing yourself to elevate her life while yours crumbles into dust, or finally wake up. It's time to reclaim your time, to rebuild your profound mission, and to definitively cease living as a man whose very existence hinges on the validation of someone else. Because Dostoevsky warned you, long before these words ever reached your ears, that you don't lose your life in one dramatic, cataclysmic moment. You lose it incrementally, inch by agonizing inch, choice by self-deceiving choice, excuse by hollow excuse, until there is quite literally nothing left but the hollowed-out shell of the man who, with a bewildering lack of self-preservation, gave it all away for nothing. And now, here you are, standing amidst the desolate rubble of a life you once deluded yourself into believing was built on the bedrock of love. The brutal truth, however, is that it was meticulously constructed upon the shifting sands of fear, and the most poignant tragedy of all, you still don't know who you are without her. This is the profound emptiness, the existential void you now confront, because you possess the inherent capacity to construct a formidable fortress around your own being. You could have forged an enduring legacy, a testament to your unique purpose. You could have meticulously built yourself into the kind of man that no woman, no matter her strength or ambition, could ever conceivably outgrow. But you didn't. Instead, you dedicated your entire being to constructing her dreams. You meticulously upgraded her comfort, polished her existence, and painstakingly smoothed the path of her life, all while yours simultaneously shrunk, grew quieter, and became increasingly, devastatingly empty. And here's the unpalatable truth you desperately wish you didn't have to hear, the one that will sting with a cold, unyielding precision. She owes you nothing, not loyalty, not an ounce of gratitude, not even the simplest expression of love, and certainly not a solitary thank you for all the countless years you so diligently sacrificed. Why? Because, in the harsh light of reality, you didn't actually do it for her. You did it for yourself, for the weak, approval-starved, deeply insecure version of you who mistakenly believed that being desperately needed by someone else was somehow synonymous with being inherently valuable. Dostoevsky, with his uncanny foresight into the human condition, issued a profound caution regarding this very self-deception. He famously wrote, "To love is to suffer, and to suffer is to love." But you, in your fervent embrace of self-immolation, conveniently skipped over the unspoken, yet equally vital, corollary: suffering without clear, self-respecting boundaries isn't love. It is, in its purest form, self-betrayal. You were never, ever meant to sacrifice your entire existence on the altar of another's desires. You were never meant to meticulously erase yourself, pixel by pixel, just to make someone else feel perpetually secure. You were never meant to thoughtlessly trade your profound, inherent mission for their fleeting comfort. Your true calling was to build something far grander than both of you combined. Something that they could implicitly trust you to lead. Something they could profoundly respect you for having painstakingly created. Something that would, by its very nature, outlive their transient presence in your life. But you failed in this fundamental duty. You instead constructed an elaborate temple for someone else, diligently lit the candles, meticulously swept the floors, and then, with a pathetic, childlike anticipation, stood outside its hallowed doors, waiting, perpetually waiting, for someone, anyone, to invite you back in. Now, take a long, unflinching look at your life. Gaze upon the immense reservoir of energy you have so prodigally poured into making her dreams a tangible reality. Reflect on the monumental sacrifices you've willingly made, the myriad opportunities you casually bypassed, the precious years you irrevocably squandered in a desperate, ultimately futile attempt to make her stay. And then, with absolute honesty, answer this piercing question: what, truly, did you build for you? Where is your unshakable foundation? Where is the driving force of your unique mission? Where, in this grand cosmic tapestry, is your life? You don't know, do you? The answer eludes you, because you consistently failed to make yourself the primary project. You never elevated yourself to the position of undisputed priority. You never, in your desperate quest for external validation, forged yourself into the kind of man she could respect without simultaneously feeling the need to save you from yourself. And now, the inevitable consequence: you are alone, not merely because she has physically departed, but because, in a far more profound sense, you are never truly present to begin with. You were too consumed, too utterly absorbed, in the relentless task of constructing her life, while your own, silently and tragically, vanished into the ether. So, here is the final, stark warning, delivered with an urgency that should reverberate through your very bones. If you fail to break this cycle now, if you stubbornly refuse to reclaim your own mind from the quagmire of self-deception, if you neglect to meticulously rebuild your life from the smoldering ashes of what you so carelessly wasted, you will, with an agonizing certainty, live out the remainder of your days as the man who perpetually invested in upgrading someone else's world, all while his own burned quietly tragically in the background. And that, in its most brutal simplicity, is the fate of the vast majority of men. They die empty, utterly forgotten, and fundamentally unbuilt. But that, I reiterate with absolute conviction, does not have to be your predetermined destiny. Not if you choose, right now, to pivot, to turn around and face the truth. Let me share something profound that Dostoevsky, in his darkest moments, inherently understood: the darker the night, the brighter the stars, and right now, undeniably, you are traversing a profound darkness. You have squandered precious years. You have, through your own actions, lost yourself. You have, perhaps irreparably, forfeited the self-respect you once mistakenly believed you possessed. But here's the crucial caveat: you haven't lost everything. Not yet. You are still drawing breath. You are still reading these words. You still possess one, solitary, yet immeasurably powerful thing left, the inherent power to stop lying to yourself. Dostoevsky meticulously chronicled the agonizing descent of the man who collapses under the crushing weight of his own elaborate lies. The man who, in his profound weakness, simply cannot bear to face the unvarnished truth of who he has become. But he also, crucially, wrote about the man who, after enduring unimaginable destruction, after staring into the abyss of his own making, finally chooses to stand up again. And that man, the man capable of such a profound resurrection, could still, miraculously, be you. But first, you must engage in an act of profound psychological excision. You have to let go of the insidious lie that your life is inherently worth less than hers. You have to brutally kill the debilitating belief that your only conceivable value stems from being desperately needed by another. You have to definitively stop playing the pathetic martyr, cease embodying the role of the perpetual provider who, in his desperate need for external validation, possesses no intrinsic purpose of his own. And for the love of all that is true, stop playing the fool who willingly gives away his entire world, piece by agonizing piece, merely to avoid the terrifying prospect of being alone. You were not born to be someone's emotional crutch, a temporary support for their fleeting instabilities. You were not born to be her long-term retirement plan, a financial safety net for her future. You were not born to be the anonymous sponsor of someone else's comfort, while you, in bitter contrast, slowly drown in the silent, corrosive waters of your own profound regret. You were born to build. You were born to lead. You were born to suffer. Yes, but to suffer for something that belongs unequivocally to you. To sacrifice for a grander vision that transcends the fleeting boundaries of her approval, a vision that lives and breathes beyond her presence. To live without hope is to cease to live. Dostoevsky wrote that, too, and you, my friend, have subsisted without genuine hope for far too long. It is now time to rebuild. It is time to bravely face the brutal, uncomfortable silence you have so assiduously avoided for so long. It is time to cease the pathetic charade that your life possesses no inherent weight, no profound mission, no intrinsic worth outside of the singular task of making someone else's existence marginally easier. It is time to walk away, not from genuine love, not from women in general, not from authentic human connection, but from the pathetic, self-erasing version of yourself that made them your sole, pathetic reason for living. Because the world, in its desperate longing for true strength, doesn't need another man who lives solely for shallow, external approval. The world, in its deepest need, yearns for men who build from the inside out. Men who, with an unwavering commitment, choose their profound mission over fleeting comfort. Men who choose the inherent, enduring power of meaning over the fleeting narcotic of validation. Men who choose the undeniable burden of responsibility over the empty echo of applause. And here's the cold, unyielding truth that should ignite a fire in your soul. You don't need her life to get better. You need your life to stop getting worse. So, stand up, not for her, not for them, for you. Because when you meticulously rebuild yourself, when you rise like a phoenix from the smoldering ashes of your wasted years, when you finally cease attempting to purchase love with the cheap currency of self-sacrifice, you will never again need to grovel or beg for anyone to stay. They will, with an undeniable magnetism, follow you. Because this time, with an authentic purpose radiating from your core, you will actually be leading. But do not, for a single moment, delude yourself into believing that this monumental task of rebuilding will be easy. Dostoevsky, in his profound literary explorations, made it unequivocally clear, nothing truly meaningful ever is. He famously penned, "The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for," and that, precisely, is the uncomfortable truth you have been relentlessly running from. Not the pain, not the inevitable sacrifice, not the profound cost. You have been running from the suffocating emptiness you feel when you are forced to realize that you have never, truly, defined your own intrinsic purpose, because it is undeniably easier to elevate someone else into the role of your life's mission. It is simpler to outsource your own happiness, making someone else's well-being your sole occupation. It is infinitely less daunting to simply disappear into the sprawling narrative of someone else's life than to embark on the terrifying, yet ultimately liberating, journey of building one of your own. You have, regrettably, mastered the insidious art of giving without building, of sacrificing without ever truly taking a stand, of perpetually providing without ever genuinely leading. And now that it's over, now that she has irrevocably departed, now that you are left with nothing but the raw, unvarnished truth of yourself, you finally, painfully, realize that you have never, in your entire existence, built anything that truly, unequivocally, belongs to you. But here, nestled within this profound despair, lies the hidden, transformative gift. She's gone, and now, at long last, you have no one left to hide behind, no one left to conveniently blame, no one left to distract you from the uncomfortable truth, no one left to carry the colossal burden that you, in your profound weakness, steadfastly refuse to shoulder for yourself. And this, precisely this, is where the real, agonizing, yet ultimately redemptive, work begins. It commences the very moment you cease apologizing with a cringing subservience for choosing yourself, for prioritizing your own intrinsic worth. It begins the instant you cease outsourcing your fundamental manhood to the fluctuating comfort levels of another. It ignites when you, with an unwavering commitment, finally take full, undeniable responsibility for the life you have, until this moment, been profoundly afraid to build, because the man you were before, the man who meticulously upgraded her life while his own crumbled into dust, he is dead now. And the man you are destined to become, the man you absolutely must become, is not forged in the soft crucible of comfort. He is not born from the fleeting, addictive drug of validation. He is not created through the self-destructive act of sacrificing for others while systematically starving himself. He is born, unequivocally, the very moment you choose to suffer for something that belongs to you. You mistakenly believe that she is what you have lost. You are profoundly mistaken. You lost yourself. You lost your irreplaceable time. You lost your inherent strength. You lost your very dignity. You lost your profound mission. And you have been languishing in those desolate ruins ever since, foolishly blaming her for simply walking away when, in the most profound sense, it was you who abandoned yourself first. Dostoevsky's greatest, most piercing warning is not about women, or about relationships, or about external circumstances. It is about men who, with a tragic blindness, lose their very souls by consistently living for anything other than the unvarnished, brutal truth of their own being. And here, in its most distilled form, is that undeniable truth. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to meticulously build you up. No one is coming to magically hand you back the precious years you so prodigally wasted. You are faced with a stark binary choice. You are either going to rise now like a phoenix from the ashes of your former self, or you are going to rot forever in the haunting memory of the man you in your profound cowardice refused to become. The choice, unequivocally, is yours, and the relentless clock of your finite existence is already ticking, loudly, impatiently,